Good morning, everybody. Friday, July the 3rd. Happy 4th of July. It's Independence Day weekend. This is the Made in Paradise podcast. Today, we're going to talk about freedom. And when you say the word freedom to me, I think that there's only one place that freedom exists for you. Freedom exists in your consciousness or it doesn't. We either feel like we're free or we're not. And so I think that there's a lot of people in this world that think that they're free and they're actually in a self-imposed prison in their mind, because that's the one place that other people can't come in and enslave us involuntarily, right? In our mind and our consciousness is always free if we believe it, that it's free. Where the body and what happens to the body is a whole other thing, but the consciousness, that's where we need to be free first before we're free anywhere else. So with that in mind, Darren Fingleton, tell me your thoughts about freedom this morning on this July 3rd long weekend.
Well, I can't agree with you more that freedom is not what someone tells you. You're free. No, you're free based on what's in your mind. So my question to you, John, is when you left the United States, did you feel freer being here in Costa Rica?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think you feel, from a physical standpoint, things feel a lot freer here than they do in the United States in certain ways, right? I was thinking about when we said we were going to talk about freedom, I was thinking about police checkpoints, because here I might get in the car and drive, 3 kilometers down the road, and there's a whole group of police who can stop me, check my license, look in my car, do all those things, and I can't stop them. I have to let them do it, right? While in the United States, you can't do that, right? You can't stop me from going anywhere. You have to have a reason to stop me. And so that's a freedom that I enjoyed in the United States that I don't enjoy here. But I think you have to look at freedom as a whole picture, right?
Right.
I look at the fact that it's green here all the time. It never turns brown. It never turns gray. It's never really that cold. And so the environment outside, I think, makes my mind feel freer. The looking at the mountains, the foliage, the butterflies, the hummingbirds, just all of it, right? I think yes, I definitely feel a lot freer. The other thing is that Ticos don't obsess over work the way gringos do. They make family more important and they want to go home, right? They're not workaholics like the folks in the United States. There's so many folks in the United States who are working 60, 70 hours a week trying to get ahead in the rat race. I don't see that nearly as much here as I did in the United States. And when I go back to the United States, I think, oh, what a trap that is. Yeah. And we did a whole episode on why I moved here too, right? And I moved here because I looked around the room and saw a whole bunch of rich people that I thought they're all trapped and I need to get out of this.
Yeah. I see a lot of people that stay here where I live. I mean, I live in a very rural area and they stay here just to live by their families. They don't want to go out and get a better job or anything like that. They prefer to stay here, and family members of my girlfriend here, they have made that same decision. They could have easily gone into the city, got better jobs. No, they don't want to do that. They want to stay here by the family.
Well, and I think it's also jobs. Right. I think it's also very shocking the number of Ticos who leave Costa Rica and go to the United States and stay for a couple of years and then come back to make 2/3 less money.
Yeah.
And when you talk to them about it, they say, well, it's just, the United States is just not Costa Rica. It's just not Costa Rica.
Yeah, Jersey, you can't compare it.
No. I mean, and I don't know why the Ticos picked New Jersey as the place to go, but if all the places you could go, right, the garden state that's not a garden, maybe the name fooled them, I don't know. But New Jersey's not the place to judge the entire United States by, for sure.
Right. So our next question, John. Freedom typically costs money. Do you agree? You have extra cash, you typically have a bit more freedom.
Yeah, I think it's financial freedom, right? More cash, you have financial freedom. But then again, I see so many people who are very wealthy and have imprisoned themselves with their ideas.
Yeah.
And they're not financially free. They're still worried about getting more. And if you're worried about getting more, which is really greed, if you have plenty, and then you want more, you're in a prison of greed in your mind and your consciousness.
Yep. I also think it has to do with responsibility. So if you're, let's say, building some empire or something like that, you just can't walk away from that. If you wanted to keep working, you could walk away from it, but it might come crumbling down on top of it. That's where a lot of people
For many years, I've used vision boards and of things that I wanted, right, just to keep them in mind or whatever. And years and years ago, before I moved to Costa Rica, I had a friend that had private planes, and he would invite me to go fly on his private planes. And sometimes you could do stuff like, okay, we're going to get in the plane in Houston, we're going to fly to San Antonio and have dinner and come back. Well, now you would say, wow, that's some freedom there, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's some freedom there. And I had a plane I had a King Air 350 on my wall because he had a King Air 350. He had actually 3 or 4 planes at one time, but he had that King Air, and I loved that plane, and I had flown that plane. I felt safe on that plane. I had it up on the wall. But as I knew my friend over the course of time, and I watched him maintain those planes and all the money he spent maintaining those planes and all the worry that went along with all of that, all the expense, and it was on his, I got to do this, I got to do this, I got to do this. And the gas, oh my goodness. I mean, he had a friend who had a jet, and the friend sent the jet one time and flew us from Houston to Dallas to Texarkana. Just that one leg, Houston, Dallas, Texarkana. And he paid $11,000 for the gas for that trip.
$11,000.
$11,000 worth of gas costs to do that trip at that time in that jet. And one day I looked up at that vision board, I looked at that plane, and I said, I don't want all this worry that goes along with this plane. I would not want all this. I would not. It's not just buying the plane, but it's all of the stuff that goes along with the plane. And if I really want to make that trip, I could just pay someone to make the trip, right? And not actually have to own that plane. So there's a re-enslaving that goes on when people get a bunch of money and then they go out and do things with that money that again enslave their consciousness to something else that they wouldn't have chosen.
Right.
Right.
So Anthony, in Coweta, do you think people have more freedom there being where they're at, or do you think they feel trapped being there in Coweta?
I think they feel free completely, because whenever you are around here, there's not a bunch of things to do, just starting from that point. And the technology, we call it third world community, right? Because Coweta is definitely behind the rest.
You said a third world community is what you say. It's a third world community. Okay.
That's right. So because Coweta is behind, so whenever you're around, you definitely, or you're free or you don't survive. There's no way like to feel I'm trapped, because there's all these visitors that whenever they come from the city and they come with the mindset from the city, and they've been in Coweta for probably 4 or 5, 6 hours, they became to say, oh, I feel released from all the stress. And I definitely communicate myself with whatever within me, right? So in Coweta, you will find freedom, I would say, immediately. Sure, like all the communities, there is issue, problems, there would be whatever, drugs and all that, but you could find peace easily in Coweta, definitely.
I agree with that completely. I was over there, and everyone just felt on a whole other level of just relaxed and
right.
They're just go with the flow kind of people.
Right. No money. They would be sitting at the beach, I don't know, drinking or smoking, whatever. And you say, this guy's a rich guy. No, he may have nothing at home to eat, but he's just free. Just enjoy life. Enjoy the moment.
I think that's a type of freedom.
Yeah.
But I think we must go in and out of freedom, because anytime we're worrying, we're not free, right? We're slave to that worry. Right?
Well, that kind of goes on to my next question. Is there a difference between being free and being broke?
Well, again, I don't think money has anything to do with freedom. I think if you believe you're actually free and do not feel trapped, then you're free. It's about the belief in your consciousness. You're the only one in your consciousness, right? Right. You're the only one in your consciousness. It's your reality. If you feel free in it, and I think about the Dalai Lama he had to run from Tibet because of the Chinese invasion, and he was given asylum by the government of India. But one of the guys that's one of his right-hand men was tortured by the Chinese before he was released. And they asked him something like, how did you endure that? And, how did you maintain yourself? And he just said, well, I didn't want to become like them. So I was always had this contrast of becoming like them. But he talked about feeling free, being in prison and being beaten. But his mind was free, right? His consciousness was free while his body was being tortured. So I think we go in and out of freedom, but also it's a decision that we can make, right? We just say, I'm free. Do whatever you want to me.
Yeah.
And we've talked about martyrs on an episode, and how certain people, the woman who went to her death singing "Jesus Loves Me." Well, isn't that freedom? Even though they're about to go execute her. So I don't think freedom and money, they're not associated at all. Money is a tool. You say, well, is there a difference between a hammer and freedom? Yeah, there is. They have nothing to do with one another, right? So yeah, that's my response about money and freedom.
Yeah, I mean, it does make sense though, because I mean, if you really wanted to live, I mean, just as Anthony's example, they have no food at the house, but they're at the beach drinking a beer and they're content with life. If you really wanted to, you can go live at a monastery or a temple or something like that, and they'll give you food, they'll give you a place to sleep, and you got to help with things around there.
What Ram Dass used to talk about when Baba Hari Das was teaching him to meditate, and he was in a place where, very little food, nothing to do, like you said, Anthony, and he was just there to meditate. And Baba Hari Das didn't speak, so everything he wrote on a chalkboard, and he would give Ram Dass's instructions because he was in silence, right? He'd say instructions. And the only thing Ram Dass had to do was he had a whole bunch of scriptural texts, right? He had these Indian texts, the Bible, and that's all he had to read and meditate, right? That was kind of his whole thing. And so he talks about he would meditate for 4 hours, and he said, I would be having a 4-hour long sexual fantasy, right? And that's not freedom. That's being enslaved to that fantasy, right?
Right.
Yeah. So take that for what you will, but it goes back to the mind all the time. Is your mind free? Can you direct your mind? Because if you cannot direct your mind, if you have a monkey mind that jumps from subject to subject to subject to subject, well, that's not free. That's slavery. You're a slave to your mind. So often when Sadhguru talks about worry, he says, it's because you turned your mind against yourself. You turned your mind against yourself by what you're doing with your mind. Because most people think they are their mind, and they're not. They're the I am behind their mind, observing it, right? I am that thing, which is what Ramana Maharshi said. I am that. I'm not this, I'm that. Observing what's happening. That I am is perfectly free. It's only this mind and body that can get trapped or enslaved.
Right. And so do you think that, if it's that simple, do you think humans actually want freedom, or do they prefer to have constraints that make them happy?
I think that most people put themselves in some sort of self-imposed prison in their mind, like nearly everyone. If you just compare the mind of a saint, take your pick, and the average person, you got to say that's freedom, that's enslavement.
Okay. All right. Next question. What do you think the U.S. has promised about freedom that isn't actually true?
Well, freedom we've determined has a big definition, but I think the United States is a freer place than a lot of other places. But a lot of other places are freer than the United States is.
Yep.
Denmark, right? Look at Denmark, universal health care, hardly anybody's in prison, right? Where the United States leads in incarcerating our own citizens. And we're incarcerating people for profit, right? We're not incarcerating them for good reason. We're not trying to rehabilitate anyone. It's a for-profit system, and that's why we incarcerate more of our citizens than anyone else. Well, in that way, the United States is less free. If you buy a house in the United States, in most states, you're going to have to pay property tax every year. If you can't pay it, they come take your house.
Yep.
Is that freedom? I can't drive a car without a driver's license. I get a big penalty, right? And if they catch me doing it a couple of times, they'll impound the car. So is that freedom? Well, wait a minute now. If I don't have a driver's license, maybe I don't know how to drive the car. So when I drive the car without a license, now I'm infringing on someone else's freedom and not allowing them to be free. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So freedom has a fuzzy definition, Darren. I mean, we look at some of these Muslim countries where they kill you if you're gay. But in the United States, if you're trans, for example, you're severely discriminated against in this moment. I mean, if you're black in the United States, you've been marginalized for 400 years. Since the 1600s, you've been marginalized and forced into a horrible situation. And even after slavery was abolished nearly 100 years ago, they continued to make those Jim Crow laws and all of those things to keep black people enslaved. So this freedom has this fuzzy definition.
Yeah. My last question is the 4th of July is about freedom, but it's not about freedom of oneself. It's about freedom of government control. But do you think we're actually free of that government control?
No.
Or is it just a complete different
I think that if you look at the 10,000 foot view, each one of us who's a citizen of a particular country, that country owns us like cattle. We can't leave the country without their permission. So that's not free. I can't cross over an imaginary border without two governments' permission.
Right.
So that's not freedom. That's someone who owns me, right? And they own me, and they can say, you can't travel, you can't move. Well, that, in a way, that's not freedom at all. And I don't think that the 4th of July is about freedom. I think it's about patriotism. And I think that, the people who left England wanted religious freedom. And so they left England to get religious freedom in the United States. They wanted to be able to believe about God what they want to believe about God. That's the story they teach us in school. Right. But now as you look at the United States, do you really have religious freedom? I don't know. Because if you're getting discriminated against just because of your belief, that doesn't seem to be free.
Exactly.
And there's so many people now saying, well, the United States needs to be a Christian nation because it was founded as a Christian nation. It was not. Thomas Jefferson was not a Christian at all. Not. Most of the founding fathers were not Christians at all. That's why they said separation of church and state. Believe what you want to believe, but keep it out of the government. And now we have the government saying, now in Texas, right, they're saying you put the 10 Commandments up on the wall. Well, what's really that different about the 10 Commandments, which authorizes slavery as okay, right? What's that difference about the 10 Commandments? We're moving in the direction of Sharia law, which everybody says is this horrible law that the Muslim people, like people in Afghanistan, have to live under, where they won't educate the women and they treat the women like property and so on and so forth. I think that we have a large contingent of old white men in the United States that would like to go to something like that. And if you haven't watched The Handmaid's Tale, I think that's the whole premise of it is freedom is taken away. All freedom is taken away. Everything becomes absolutely controlled. And I can see that easily happening in the United States. I can see our freedoms being taken away. But you put that 10 Commandments up on the wall, that is definitely a restriction. Now you've said this is primordial, right? This supersedes everything, these commandments. And they do not. That was written by some ignorant people thousands of years ago, and we're as a race not smart enough to look down at that and say, okay, some of this is useful wisdom, but a bunch of this is just bullshit. Like when I was leaving the church, when I just finally decided after my first wife died, and I said, okay, I just can't believe this anymore, much less teach it, right? I just can't do this anymore. I cannot bow down before a God who commits genocide, because my morality is better than that. And I decided in that moment, in order to be freer, I needed to get rid of these thoughts of worshiping Jehovah, who is a genocidal God. Right?
Yeah.
All right, Anthony Ferguson, what do you want to ask about freedom?
Like Bob Marley said, none but ourselves can free our minds, right? So how can a prisoner be truly free in his mind?
There's a guy named Damon Nichols, and he wrote a book called High Magic, Magick, and he was falsely imprisoned and later released. But I got goosebumps when I think about this book. I've been thinking about rereading it later. But the book is about magic, and I don't want to go into that. But in his jail cell in solitary confinement, he set his mind free and traveled everywhere. And so again, comes back to consciousness, right? Now you say, well, how does he travel when he's in a jail cell? Well, he learned to astral project. People say, oh, well, that's bullshit. Okay, go study it. Go study it and go look at remote viewing, at astral projection, at how many people claim to be out of their body and how much evidence there is for that across thousands of years. For example, in the Hindu culture, of a person being stationary in one place, but their mind is somewhere else. Darren, you mentioned yesterday, I'm gonna quote this, I had it up on the screen. Baba named Crowley said, when a man reaches the point where he can sit in meditation for 6 months, there's no need of eating, no need of latrine or rest, only one drop of amrit, right? The holy nectar in the top of the head, and the body keeps him alive. If a tiger eats the body, there is no care, but only when the life comes back to the body will there be pain. Where is the life then? Where is that life while the tiger is eating the body? Not in the body, it's somewhere else. And if you study dreams, again, Hinduism, we're not in our body while we're dreaming. Our consciousness leaves our body and goes and does all sorts of things and then comes back when we wake. So that's how, Anthony, to answer your question, you can be anywhere if you know how.
Right. So let's say we remove the idea that freedom is in our mind.
Okay.
And so where does your freedom end and mine begin?
Well, I would like to think that I'm free to do whatever I want to do as long as it doesn't affect you. The moment my freedom starts affecting you, now we have a problem. I go out in my yard, I need to burn some trash. So I start burning the trash and all the smoke that starts blowing through your living room. See what I mean? My freedom should have a line where it affects your freedom.
I agree completely.
And that's what laws should be for, right? Laws should be set up to make you as free as possible as long as you don't infringe on someone else's freedom.
We wish. Are smartphones and technology stealing our freedom?
Yes, completely. Enslaved. Do you remember that Batman movie that's got Jim Carrey in it where he plays the Riddler? You remember that? It's one of the first Batman movies made, like the second or third one. They do the one with Jack Nicholson, and then I think they do the Jim Carrey, and then they do the Arnold Schwarzenegger that plays Mr. Freeze. But in the Jim Carrey movie, he's got this thing that's on top of the TV, and he turns it on, and it's like projecting this beam into the middle of everybody's third eye, and they're all watching the TV. You remember that movie?
Batman Forever.
There, thank you. That's what I think about when I go into a restaurant, especially a nice restaurant. I'm in a nice restaurant, I'm looking around and everybody's down on their phone, young people on dates, old people. I mean, I watched a couple one time, this old couple, they sat and they ate at this table together and they both had wedding rings on. They've obviously been married a long time and they were completely in their own worlds on their devices. They went through the whole meal. They ordered almost separately to the waiter and went back to their device. They were completely more interested in what was on the device than their life partner sitting in front of them, right? And I think the all of these devices and the social media and its self-imposed prison, self-imposed prison for our consciousness.
Right. Well, that's all my questions.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Made in Paradise podcast. We do this every week, Monday through Friday. And you can see us on YouTube and all the social media channels. We are sponsored by Proven Performer. Darren's going to put up some contact information down here at the bottom of the screen. Proven Performer is a company that does big closeout deals. We solve big inventory problems. We have over 500 customers we've done business with in 26 countries and growing. If you have a big inventory problem, we'd love to talk to you. Talking about it, consultation is always free. We always have big inventories to sell too. We've got, at this moment, probably 30 inventories that are 4, 5, 6 trailers or more. So if you're interested in big inventories, no matter where you are in the world, please reach out to one of us. We love WhatsApp, email, Telegram, iMessage, however you want to communicate. We want to communicate with you. Please reach out if you have a big inventory problem. We'd love to talk to you about it. Hope you have a wonderful Independence Day weekend for those of you in the United States who are listening to us. Many blessings. We love you, and we're going to see you on Monday. Thanks for watching Made in Paradise.